Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Hero, fresh off the presses. It's the brand new edition. I am, of course, one of your hosts. My name is John Campea. Thanks for being here. And I am, of course, joined by my cohort, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, man?
I am doing wonderfully well. It's been a fantastic week so far for superheroes, has it not?
It has been a remarkable week for superheroes, and we've got a lot of stuff regarding the world of superheroes. This here on the Weekly Hero, this is your publication that talks about all the things in the world of superheroes as they pertain to the big and even the little screen a little bit. So, Robert, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about here today, and we would be a little bit remiss if we didn't start off by talking about this little superhero film that opened called AQUAMAN. We haven't done a Weekly Hero since AQUAMAN came out. So let's talk about AQUAMAN a little bit. First of all, let's start with your initial impressions of AQUAMAN.
Well, we did see it, and we saw it in IMAX, which was, thank you for that, by the way.
My pleasure.
I thought it was bonkers and in the best way. It was so much fun. I think Drew McWeeny summed it up on Twitter. He said, every generation needs their Flash Gordon. and I
don't know if I go that
of
far
course,
about it.
Maybe not quite that much, but what I loved about this movie was the sheer audacity of it. It was just insane. Like it was crazy. Like it was, you never knew. Look, I said this before. There's a moment, I know you didn't like it very much.
No, I did not.
But an octopus is playing the drums, beating the drums to hype up the crowd before someone goes into battle. This is the kind of movie it is. Now, if you like that kind of thing, which I do, you'll like it. But I think it's going to be very divisive for audiences because the tone of it is certainly not what we've become used to. I mean, there has been I think an effort, especially with the MCU, to ground our superheroes in reality. Like, we believe that the Avengers could be outside right now, fighting for us somewhere in Hollywood. Even though Thor fights amongst them in the Guardians of the Galaxy, but there is a certain, the fight at the airport in Civil War was done in a very realistic, as far as it goes. I mean, it felt like you're in a real world environment, that these guys were fighting in a real world environment. AQUAMAN, that's out the door. You were in full on big fantasy land, world, universe. There is no semblance of reality in the movie once you get to Atlantis. And I think that might rub some people the wrong way. I loved it.
The funny thing is that we've seen a number of movies over the years, whether it's Transformers, the original Thor, and quite often what we'll hear from the audience is, with Transformers, it should all take place on Cybertron. Or
right.
I remember when the original Thor, it should all take place on Asgard. Or another movie where a lot of it takes place here on Earth. And I personally feel like, no, you want that Earth element because you want, as an audience member, the feel of the fantastical within the mundane. Like, you want that a little bit, right? But I did find that AQUAMAN, with exceptions in the movie, but for the most part, AQUAMAN almost entirely takes place in that alien world that is alien to us.
Right.
It almost entirely takes place in that alien world, right? So very, very little. I couldn't tell you more than 5 scenes where just people who are not Atlanteans or some offshoot of Atlanteans are really in the scene. Like, we don't see life on the streets in the average town, right?
No.
You see a few news clips, but that's about it, right? So it really takes place more there. Let me give you my impressions of the film. I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun, engaging. It is a spectacle. The movie is absolutely a spectacle, which we have come to expect from a director like James Wan.
Right.
He delivers the spectacle, right? And it absolutely is that. What I also found, though, is that where the film falls a little bit short is where I found some of James Wan's other stuff also falls a little bit short, which is the emotional gravity of some scenes that aren't supposed to be spectacle scenes. Like, for instance, the more tender moments like that are supposed to be shared between AQUAMAN and Meyer. Not done badly, but you could tell maybe another director with a different set of tools and a different set of skills might have been able to give a little bit more out of it. 2 characters have a reunion of such at the end of the movie. Supposed to have some emotional weight to it. Didn't really feel the emotional weight of it. There are also some other scenes, like when you get the quieter scenes, those are the scenes that I find James Wan does not necessarily excel. I'm not going to say he's weak at those, but he doesn't necessarily excel. Unlike those other areas in which he most definitely excels. The humor mixed with the excitement, mixed with the thrills, mixed with the action, mixed with the visual spectacle of it all. So I came out of it going, you know what? Aquaman is a win. I think it's a win. The critic ratings are kind of showing that. I think besides Wonder Woman, it's the highest critically rated DCU movie so far. And that reflects that. I'm not willing, though, at this point to put it on Man of Steel or Captain America Civil War or Avengers Infinity War level because it doesn't quite deliver those other areas that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, there are a couple of shots and a couple of scenes in this movie that I think the movie really could have done without. The octopus playing the drums being one of them. I think that is something they definitely could have taken out of the film. A little bit of inconsistency, but you know what? It's not The Dark Knight, but it's a good quality. I feel much the same way as I did with Venom. I came walking out kind of feeling the same way I felt coming out of Venom. It's like, you know what? Is this one of the great motion pictures? No. Was this a fun, enjoyable outing at the movie theater? Yeah, and I think most people are going to feel that too.
You know, there's a 70s Hong Kong Ultraman ripoff that was made by the Shaw Brothers called the Super Inframan.
Okay, I think I've heard of this.
Yeah, or it's just called Inframan. Now, I love this movie. And in the English translation of Inframan, the villain, who's a female villain, her name is Princess Dragon Mom. And I mean, it's goofy, kids. It's a really goofy movie. But I grew up liking things like that.
Right.
Like, and people would get on me like, why didn't you like Power Rangers? And I'm like, because Power Rangers was missing what was inherent in the original Japanese versions of these kinds of things. There was something in sort of in Asian culture where they buy into the living robots and the super robots, and there's a whimsy there. This movie has, even though it's not whimsical per se, but the idea when you see at the end the battles in this movie, just the huge spectacles, there's an element of whimsy that you kind of need to love. You know, if you want to love Aquaman, you have to like the whimsical, because this movie is full of that. Even the fact that Tamora Morrison lives in a lighthouse.
Yeah,
you know, he wasn't some military guy. He's a lighthouse keeper. You know, and
he's a good man.
He's a good man. He's not just a fet. He's a good man. and it's just this movie has an element of whimsy that appealed to me that I haven't seen really in any other sci-fi science fiction superhero movie in a long time.
Certainly not in the DCEU up until this point.
No.
And you know what? You and I had a conversation a little while ago about, this is before we saw Aquaman, and you and I talked about, is Aquaman, because we could tell it looked different from a lot of the other movies, right? And we said, could Aquaman kind of be a flare being shot up in the night sky, denoting to us and pointing us the way that this is a change of direction for the DCEU. This is what they're not calling it the DCU anymore, but for the DC Cinematic Universe, this is a change of direction from what we have known before and what we've become accustomed to. And we talked about, you know, Shazam is clearly also going to be different. And we talked about maybe Aquaman is going to be one of those films that kind of conditions us for what is to come in the DC universe, right? After seeing the movie, I feel more certain of that than ever. I believe we are going to get more of that, certainly in Shazam. I believe we're going to get more of that than we did in the first Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah.
And you know what? Here's the thing. With the response we're seeing, much more positive response to most other DCU films, other than maybe Wonder Woman.
Right.
I think it's a good thing. Look, a lot of people out there wanted to just see DC just keep going at it, just keep doing what they were doing, right? But the reality is, while there are those of you who are like me that enjoyed, to varying degrees, all the DC movies. I love Man of Steel. Suicide Squad was fun, a hot mess. But even though there was a lot of us who like those films, we have to acknowledge, regardless about whether you like them and I like them, they were not working. They were not getting the audience responses they wanted, they were not getting the critical responses they wanted, and they were not getting the box office results that they wanted, even though none of them were truly flops. None of them flopped. But they weren't getting, they looked over at their neighbor across the street at Marvel and seeing that they're cracking out billion-dollar films and $800 million films like it's going out of style, and they weren't getting the results. And we've talked about this before. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over while expecting a different result. And I think Warner Brothers and Walter Hamada just came in and went, guys, we cannot be insane. If we want different results, it means we have to start doing something differently. Yeah. And look, what will the long-term effect be? We don't know. We've only seen Aquaman. But I think Aquaman was a good first step. Like, was this a good first step, or do you think there's something they need to be worried about here?
Well, I think that this is going to have – I think there are going to be people that love this movie, and I think there's going to be fandom, an element of fandom that is very vocally disenchanted with this movie, because I think the tone is something that people are going to have to get used to again.
Absolutely.
I mean, it would be like – I know Wonder Woman took place – in the teens of the 20th century during World War I. But if James Wan had directed a Wonder Woman movie in 1984, if he was directing rather than Patty Jenkins, there would definitely be Wonder Woman's invisible jet in James Wan's
yes.
in James Wan's version of Wonder Woman. The invisible jet would exist. Clearly, after seeing Aquaman, I'm convinced of that. But I don't think there's a place for Wonder Woman's invisible jet in the version of Wonder Woman that we got.
Right.
And I think what's interesting about Aquaman is it makes Batman v Superman a little bit more palatable, because Doomsday would exist in James Wan's version, the way Doomsday is portrayed, because he's kind of goofy, even though he's big and monstrous, and they took him out of the comics.
An ugly Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, he's an ugly Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And so, in a way, Aquaman might be the fulcrum of the different tones that are available to filmmakers to use in the DC universe.
Just keep Batman. Please just keep Batman.
Well, yes.
Batman.
I mean,
That's
I think Batman is obviously the one. That's how far you go down reality, and Aquaman is on the other end of that spectrum. But now we can have the rainbow of DCEU films, and I think in a way, assuming the film is successful, it will open up the kinds of movies that can get made. And I think Shazam is going to be telling as well. How is that all going to work in the spectrum of – I think there's room for all of it.
And you know what? I think a lot of us – you mentioned Shazam. I think Shazam is going to be ultimately what tells us how well people responded to Aquaman.
Right.
Honestly, I really do. I think it's not until Shazam comes out that we will really get a sense for how do people respond to Aquaman. Because if they respond well to Aquaman and they like what they did, and now we're coming into Shazam – maybe a bigger opening than we would have seen otherwise. We'll have to kind of wait and see. All right, let's move on now to the next thing here. One of the topics we've talked a bunch about here in the pages of the Weekly Hero is the fact that this no longer upcoming, Arrowverse crossover event that they do every year. I look forward to these crossover events every year, that the pinnacle of which was last year with Crisis on Earth X. That was just so much fun and goofy, and it kind of epitomized what the television version of the DC Universe was. It's the colorful, it's the fun, it's the cheesiness and the goofiness, but done in such a way that it makes a very enjoyable watching experience, So we've been looking forward to Elseworlds. Elseworlds has now aired, all right? Let me tell you what I thought about it, and then I want to hear how you respond. I thought Elseworlds was good. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. It certainly had the fun, like the stuff with Barry and Oliver doing Freaky Friday body switching. That was handled very well with the awkwardness of it and living in this world that they live in. I thought that was done very cute. I liked Ruby Rose's Batwoman. I thought the overall idea of introducing Monitor in there was kind of interesting. It doesn't come close, though, to me with the overall satisfaction I got as a viewer watching Crisis on Earth X. It didn't come anywhere near that. And part of that may be the fact that when part 3 ended and the screen goes black and it says coming fall or spring or whatever it was of 2019, Crisis on Infinite Earths, it became clear, oh yeah, this was really just kind of a setup for something they're doing next year. Overall, end of the day, I had a good time. I liked it. I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. But nowhere near the same amount as Crisis on Earth X last year. And it did feel like a setup, but we'll see where they go. What was your view? We haven't really had a chance to talk about it at all. But
no,
what was your experience like?
I finally caught up with it. I watched it all at once. That's what I was waiting to do, is watch it all the way through. And I thought, I really liked how it all held together. Like it really felt all of a piece. I really liked Ruby Rose as Batwoman. I thought she was great, but sort of perfunctory. I don't think she had enough She didn't have enough to do within the confines of the problem.
It was an introduction.
Yeah, I know. It was an
Yeah,
introduction.
and that was pretty much it.
But I really liked her a lot. And I liked that whole idea of Bruce Wayne's been missing for 3 years. Where has he gone? We
Beautiful.
don't know.
I liked that a lot,
loved
actually.
loved all that stuff. I love the scene in Arkham Asylum where Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow, you know, they're fighting.
His gas is
they're
there.
fighting. You got to see John Barrowman again. I mean, that was great. It was a lot of fun. I liked, look, even though it's goofy and kind of, they don't have the budget, I liked seeing the Supermans fight each other in the skies. You know, that was cool. A lot of it, the Book of Destiny, yeah, it was fast and loose. Yeah, if you have the willpower, you can, I mean, that's a little, I get it.
It was a pretty surface MacGuffin.
It really was, and they didn't really explain why the body switching happened.
No, not at all.
Like, why it was an interesting thing that they did, and I liked the relationships. They could have played a little bit more with who knew what. You woke up sleeping with her. You woke up in bed. Yes, I mean it's all very innocent and goofy, and it felt to me like the CW shows are all like reading comic books to me in the 70s were when I was a kid, when I was like 10 years old reading these comics. You can't take them too seriously. It's a lot of fun to watch. I liked where they were going. I loved seeing the Monitor.
Yeah.
He was great. And look, for somebody who read Crisis on Infinite Earths, devoured it when it first came out, seeing a live-action Monitor was really cool. And he looked just like the Monitor. The costume was great. I love that. It was.
Let me ask you a question.
And even, look, they couldn't do his satellite. So, they had a platform with probably a green screen. It's in space. I mean, that's the low budget way to do it, but it was pretty. I thought it was pretty effective. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Let me ask you this: in the series, Monitor on a couple of occasions refers to somebody who is coming who is far more powerful than I, like far more powerful than Monitor. Was he talking about Anti-Monitor? Because it's not just like his equal and opposite. Something is coming who's far more powerful than I. Like instantly, my head went to Darkseid. But would they actually bring Darkseid into this?
I don't. I mean, it was cool that they had like the Psycho Pirate. At the end they introduced him, and who knew, the one person that knew, that remembered, everything that happened. I like all of that. I think I don't know. I mean, I guess the Anti-Monitor, I mean, they've used that. The Anti-Monitor came back and I think it was Final Crisis, the comic book series. These Crisis, what would really be interesting is what happens at the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths is there's one Earth.
Right.
Now, if they're going to do that with all the CW shows, and they can bring, because the traveling around universes, I think you had a little objection to. There's a little problem with which Earths and who's referring to what and who's doing what to whom. I would like to see all those Earths wiped out, and do what they did, consolidate it all into one universe. Why not?
No, and I agree. It's funny because our friend Greg Alba, was actually on the John Campea show with me earlier today, and we talked about, do we think it's possible that this, I put it this way, and follow me here. If Crisis on Infinite Earths may not only be the merging of all the various Earths in the Arrowverse into one Earth, which is the way it should be. Because there's a reason DC did that in their comics, because they realized it was getting too convoluted, and that basically, Crisis on Infinite Earths basically saved DC Comics at the time, I feel like.
I think, by the way, I made a mistake. I think it was in Metal. The Batman series, when they have the Anti-Monitor coming with the.
Oh, is that what? Okay.
I can't remember. It's all blur.
My question was, Warner Brothers seems to be getting away from having Superman in their movies. They do have a Superman? The CW show. They seem to be pushing off more and more this Flash movie that I think a lot of people are having serious doubts this Flash movie is ever going to happen at this point. Where they do have a Flash? In the TV series. The question came up, and one of the viewers sent in, what are the possibilities here that on this Crisis on Infinite Earths, they're merging not only the 90, 100, however many Earths there are in the Arrowverse, but they're also merging in, and they're going to make the movie and their television universes one universe. I don't want them to do that, and I don't think they will. But when you look at all that, I mean, I would give it a 5% chance that that's might be what they're doing.
It would really be interesting because, look, the comic books, the DC universe has had that precedent all the way back to when the Justice League and the Justice Society, who Justice Society was Earth 2 and the Justice League was Earth 1, when they would have their yearly team-ups back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, it's not something, although I have no faith that the corporate minders on the feature end of things, they're going to be like, you want to do what? Like Crisis on Infinite Earths? What? Final Crisis? Ultimate whatever? What? It's going to be really interesting to see them try and do that. But, Into the Spider-Verse is a multiverse film about Spider-Man, and that's a theatrical release.
Little easier to do, yeah. A little easier to do because it's animated, and there's no crisis of distinction there. You clearly see the distinction between that.
But the idea of multiverses is now becoming more palatable for the general public.
I'll be honest. I've never liked multiverses.
Yeah,
I've never liked them. I find it became such a lazy way to try to explain away problems, like continuity problems.
Right.
Much like time travel became a lazy way for some storytellers to say, "Oh, we fixed a problem with time travel." Like I'm not a big fan of it. There have been stories that have used it very effectively, much like time travel. But if I had my druthers, I'd say druthers. If I had my way, I would say, don't have multi-dimension stuff.
Well, when it first started out, like when Jay Garrick and Barry Allen met in the comics and they had the cosmic treadmill and all that was because the Justice Society characters were World War II characters.
Right.
And then they had these modern characters and they both existed. Which one was real? And they kind of had to figure out a way. And so Earth 2 was always, 2 or 3 decades behind Earth 1. Like Earth 1 was our present day. But then Earth 2 was during the time of World War II still.
Right.
And I thought that was clever. But then with DC, it got so convoluted, which Crisis on Infinite Earths back in the mid-'80s was supposed to solve.
Yeah.
And then that caused problems. Like, wait a minute, do all these characters now, what about the Justice Society? Are they at the same time? And it was so, and then people are older, and there's the older Superman and the younger Superman, and it got a little crazy. So, I don't know.
All right. Well, listen, guys. As we reach the midway point of the show here, one of our traditions here in the hollowed pages of the Weekly Hero is for one of the world's great collectors, Robert Meyer Burnett, to bring in one of his collection for us to awe and inspire at. And you brought us in a really cool one today. We've got...
Well, first of all, this is Carl Urban as Judge Dredd from the movie Dredd. Now, this is a bootleg figure, and I am a big proponent of not pirating things.
Right.
I don't think you should pirate movies. I don't think you should pirate music. This is a pirated figure. However, there is no licensed version in the 12-inch scale of this character. Nobody invested the money. Hot Toys has not made this figure. Sideshow has not made this figure. I mean, Sideshow, they had a great Jack Burton come out this past year.
Yeah.
But I saw this character come out. I actually have the first Judge Dredd 6-scale figure I have is Metacom's from the Sylvester Stallone version.
Wow.
Now, it's not the greatest figure in the world. There is a bootleg figure of that of Stallone's Dredd coming out this year that's gorgeous. But I like these kind of figures. There's literally the company that made this is called Art Figurines. This is like Art Figurine number 15. That's basically its designation. Now, there's a place online called the Monkey Depot. There's lots of stores online, but the Monkey Depot, you can go and buy military parts for your figures, but they sell a lot of bootleg figures. There's been a lot of X-Men figures that have come out from the X-Men film franchise, like Magneto and Patrick Stewart, Professor Xavier, or James McAvoy.
Knockoff or not, the figure's beautiful.
Yes,
very detailed. It's
bootleg
gorgeous.
figures have come. They've reached a level that's almost at the parity with Sideshow and especially Hot Toys and these other Enerbay and Blitzway and all these legitimate companies. I mean, Blitzway just announced they're doing a Gina Davis figure from Cutthroat Island,
which I would want.
It's a great figure,
Yeah.
but I'm like, it's crazy and it's weird. Like the Kubrick estate has finally allowed Clockwork Orange to be licensed.
Yeah.
You can now buy a Clockwork Orange is my second favorite movie of all time. You can buy the murdering rapist Alex DeLarge in multiple formats now, which is kind of weird, but you can buy it. But I love these bootleg figures. I think this is a cool figure. I wish it would come out legitimately. If it did come out legitimately, I'd buy it. But you know what? It didn't. I mean, I have a Nicolas Cage figure from Face Off. That's a great figure. That's also bootleg. Who would ever make that figure? I don't know.
All right. Well, let's move on here now to our next topic today. You know, one of the things that has happened since the last time we had an episode of The Weekly Hero was that a trailer dropped that got some people talking called Avengers Endgame. And we talked about it on the John Campea show a little bit. But here's the thing. One of the things that we have loved doing as film fans over the past number of months is speculating about Avengers 4. Now we call Avengers Endgame. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? So you know what, Robert? I thought we would take a few minutes here and delve into a little bit of speculation. But now we actually have a little bit of a starting off point. How have some of your theories about what we might be getting in Avengers 4, Avengers Endgame, been confirmed or maybe been challenged by what we've seen in this Endgame trailer up to now?
Well, look, I keep coming back to the fact that Kevin Feige has always mentioned, and I said this on the John Campea show, that Star Trek The Next Generation, the series finale, All Good Things, has been an influence into this Endgame film.
Right.
And that movie takes place in 3 different time periods: Picard, young Picard, middle Picard, old Picard. It goes back to the pilot encounter at Farpoint. Then we see an older Picard who's kind of, in his twilight years. And it's a really interesting mixture of having to jump between these different time frames in order to save the past, present, and future.
Right.
I kind of see, which, by the way, I loved. It's great, right? You love that.
It is the single greatest series finale ever in television.
Well, I think that's where we're headed with this. They've been setting up the quantum realm, which we know we can perhaps travel through time. We see Scott Lang show up at the end of this trailer, with the van. People say, well, it says archive on the video. Like, is it a video from the past he's watching? One of my favorite moments in the trailer is when Cap says, is this an old file? No, he's at the front door and the camera pans past him to Black Widow. And what this does to me is, look, I think Tony Stark dies alone in space. In the present, he doesn't get back to Earth. And what a great way to start the movie. Tony Stark, you think he's never going to die. He does die. He's gone. Can't get back to Earth. But when time travel's involved, all bets are off. They're going to have to go back in time. I'm sure we're going to see multiple versions of Tony Stark. We're going to see multiple versions of all these characters, and we're going to have to convince them, or whoever's going to have to convince them, that they need to deal with what's going on. And we're going to suddenly look back on Avengers 1 and Avengers Age of Ultron and a lot of the MCU movies differently. It'll be Back to the Future 2. In Back to the Future 2, when they had to go visit scenes in Back to the Future 1. I think we're going to see a lot of that. I'm convinced of that more than ever. But all it did for me was just make me that much more excited to see Avengers Endgame. I can't wait.
I got to tell you, it didn't move my needle very much either way. It did. I have some theories about Avengers 4. This trailer did not make me any more convinced about any of my theories, nor did it make me any more convinced that any of my theories were necessarily wrong, per se.
Right.
Quite yet. And that's the beauty of an ambiguous first trailer, right? It doesn't really give you a lot. The interesting thing, though, is, I mean, a lot of people saying, it says archive. Well, I don't know. If that was really a giveaway of some sort, I think Kevin Feige would have blurred that out. I kind of take the scene as it was presented.
And everything could be archived.
Remember, they thought he was dead.
Right.
They thought Ant-Man was dead. I had a few people writing to me and saying, because of the Shuri, we see the Shuri kind of memorial digital thing. It's like, well, no, John, it doesn't mean they're dead, because Ant-Man was on that picture frame too, and we know he's alive. Yes, but they thought he was dead.
Everybody they couldn't find after the snap.
They just assumed.
And we know where Scott Lang was right after the snap occurred.
Right.
He was stuck in the quantum realm.
Yeah, and somebody asked me, do you think being in the quantum realm was what protected him from the snap? And I'm like, no, because 50-50 shot, he wasn't going to be dusted anyway. It was half of everybody.
Right.
And if he's
no matter where they were.
Yeah. And if he's there with a group of 4 people and 3 of them dusted, odds are, the math says, he probably won't get dusted. I don't think it was the quantum realm, but maybe it did. I mean, so that's another possibility as well about where that could go. I'm going to still disagree with you on the Tony Stark thing. I don't think they're going to kill him in that. And I don't think, because I think if you're going to kill him, you just kill him on the planet. I think he just dies of his wounds and of his injuries on the planet. It's quick, it's simple, you don't have to worry about it. Him getting up into space, I think you're just set up for a dramatic rescue. I think they're just setting up for a dramatic rescue, so I don't think he dies. And I think one of the things they got to be careful of, This is something that the Russos and Feige and all that kind of stuff have to be careful of. When it comes to multiple realities, multiple timelines, multiple this, you can lose an audience pretty quick.
Right.
If you aren't playing that violin with a Hollywood Bowl concert cellist kind of skill, you can really, it can start feeling very weird to an audience, like to an average audience member. And that's the thing. One of the things they've been able to do in the MCU so well is do a lot of weird things, but in such a way that the average moviegoer can watch it, consume it, and feel good about it, right? If you get into these wacky kind of, suddenly there's 4 Tony Starks to kind of do things and coordinate things and the thing, and then there's 3 Spider-Men and 4 of these and blah, blah, blah. It runs the risk of getting a little loopy and losing the audience. So I hope they don't get too much into that.
No, I agree, but if you look at, there's 2 time travel movies that are both, they don't, well, one of them gets talked about a lot, is Primer, which is a really low-budget movie, and then there's another, it's a Spanish film that I adore called Time Crimes.
I don't think I've seen that.
It's a time travel movie that really begins with a guy sitting in a chaise lounge in his backyard, and he sees something in the trees, and it goes from there. If you haven't seen Time Crimes, it's a Spanish film. It's subtitled. Get that movie. The way time travel can work, I mean, look, they've got, the Marvel Universe has Kang, who's a time-traveling villain. I don't necessarily think Thanos is the big bad in this movie. I
agree. I think there's a chance he's not.
I think they're going to bring, like, Kang would be an interesting choice because Thanos already, he won. Like, there's nothing, he's not trying to do anything. What they're trying to do is undo what he did.
Yes.
So it's not like, what's he going to do? Keep trying to, he did what he was going to do.
Yeah.
Like,
now he's retired.
Now he's got the wheat in his hands like Maximus in Gladiator. He's basically, while he's not dead, he's in his own Elysium hanging out on whatever planet he's living on. You know, I don't think, what's he going to do? Get mad and try and conquer Earth now? Like, no, he's done. So I think there's a lot about this movie we have no idea about what's coming.
Do you think the gauntlet itself is going to play a major role here? Because a lot of people think they're going to get the gauntlet back from Thanos, and they're going to use the gauntlet to put everything right. I am starting to feel more and more, especially after listening again to the Russo brothers in the Infinity War commentary, saying that both Thanos and the gauntlet were irreparably repaired. Permanently damaged was the words they used. Permanently damaged. I'm starting to wonder if the gauntlet isn't the MacGuffin here. If the gauntlet is not the thing that's going to solve the problems, if there's actually some other solution, maybe it's Scott coming in with theories about the quantum realm. Maybe the quantum realm becomes the issue.
Like, I agree with you. I think that there's more in this movie than, and this is why, look, Infinity War was such a delightful surprise. I mean, like Red Skull showing up. We had the fact that the snap worked.
My favorite surprise, by the way, was Red Skull showing up. My absolute favorite surprise.
I mean, what they did in that movie was incredible. And I think with this film, they're way ahead of us. You know, it's already done. You know, it's deep into editorial and visual effects. They already know. I mean, that's the whole thing. I think they already know that they have a satisfying. Everyone's going to expect this movie to outperform Infinity War. That it's going to be a better movie, and that's a tall order. But I think they know they have a better movie, and I think this movie is going to be mind-blowing from the plot perspective. And I'm really curious to see what they do because I'm very, very excited to see the film.
All right, let's move on now to our final topic here. A little bit of news that dropped the other day. Speaking of the MCU, one of the cooler, weirder, out there pushing their own boundaries films that they've done in the last couple of years, of course, was Doctor Strange. And when they announced doing Doctor Strange, it introduced us, much like Guardians of the Galaxy, introduced us to the galactic level of the MCU. Doctor Strange was introducing us to the mystical level of the MCU. Directed by Scott Derrickson, who came in and did this film, and of course starring Benedict Cumberbatch. They knocked it out of the park. They did a wonderful job with that movie. Fun, exciting, twisty, weird, psychedelic, all the different types of words you can throw in there. It was just bat crap crazy. I mean, it was great. We have known for some time, or at least strongly suspected, that we were going to get a Doctor Strange 2, but never any kind of confirmation. Well, the Hollywood Reporter broke the story that they found it exclusively that not only is Scott Derrickson in talks to direct a Doctor Strange 2, it's done. He's finalized his deal. He's doing it. That means Doctor Strange 2 is absolutely happening. And once again, another confirmation that those who die in the Marvel Cinematic Universe never stay dead. So he's coming back too as well, and Scott is back. So let me ask you about that on 2 different levels, Robert. Number one, the fact that it's pretty much now a confirmed thing, we're getting a Doctor Strange 2, and number 2, that Scott's coming back to direct.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, what I loved about Infinity War was how important Doctor Strange became to the MCU. First of all, I really, really liked Doctor Strange a lot, but I thought, it was a little perfunctory the way Stephen Strange transitioned from being his surgeon self to being the master of the mystic arts. I mean,
they didn't communicate passage of time very well in his Rocky training montage.
Yes, they did, but it was like, and there's no other way they could do it. But I really thought the character came into his own in Infinity War. The way he was portrayed, the lines he had, his relationship with Tony it was great. But he really became the heavy hitter that he deserved to be in the Marvel Universe. I mean, he will have to be an Avenger at some point. But I think it's wonderful they're going to make another movie with him. And Chiwetel Ejiofor is still out there. He's still out there. And unless he got dusted. Maybe he's not still out there.
Well, it doesn't matter because by the time Doctor Strange 2 comes back, everybody's back.
Maybe we don't know. But I thought Doctor Strange was pretty wonderful, and I would love to see that creative team come back and knock it out of the park again. I was a big fan of what James Gunn did with Guardians 2, the way he made it a story about broken families, which was sort of an undercurrent that a lot of people didn't find it as satisfying as the first, but I liked it equally as much as Guardians 1 because it had this interesting undercurrent of that. I mean, the Nebula story with Gamora and the overall story with Peter Quill and his father. I like it when they bring back a creative team to continue on developing the character, and I think it's going to be great. I can't wait. I love that they're making a Doctor Strange 2.
All right, guys. Well, listen, we've now come to that part of the show. We're getting to the final pages now where we like to take the reader emails and see what you guys talk about. I asked you guys to jump on Twitter and send us some messages. By the way, you want to get a message on here on The Weekly Hero? Well, your best chance of doing that is getting on Twitter and tweeting out a question, and just make sure you include the hashtag The Weekly Hero. Just write out your tweet, include the hashtag The Weekly Hero. That way we can actually find it and see it. And we'll pick out a couple to use here every single week. So let's go over to Twitter right now and see what we got. And the first tweet today comes us from Dr. Remy LeBeau, which good to have Gambit here in the building. And Remy writes, what if in Endgame, an event in the past creates mutants in the present? In the Ultimate Universe, the government created mutants. Maybe in the MCU, it was a failed experiment until a drop of Steve's blood left accidentally in the past causes breakthroughs. Thanks. All right, thanks a lot, Remy. And, a lot of people, ever since it was first announced that it looked like Fox and Marvel were going to be, or Fox and Disney were going to be making a deal, have been speculating and talking about how do you bring mutants into the MCU? And that is still a question that's out there. And a number of the theories I've heard revolve around this. Government experimentation, something creates them, blah, blah, blah. To me, and they very well could go that route, but to me, that undermines one of the most core, fundamental, essential things about the philosophy and everything and the mythology of the mutants. They are a part of evolution. It is a part of humanity's evolution. And that is so fundamentally important to the real true DNA of the X-Men and their world that could you do something different? You can, but I would kind of feel like it would be a crying shame if they did. So I don't know, Robert, do you think it's something they could do?
Well, what's really interesting is we already have mutants in the MCU. You've got Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Quicksilver in the comics before it's been retconned, but was Magneto's son.
Right, but in the movies they were created by the experiments and the staff.
They're the miracles and all that, or were they created or were they experimented on? I mean, I think you could do something where the mutants have been there, they just haven't announced themselves yet.
Yeah, tough to do.
It is tough to do, but maybe Professor Xavier, if he's a geneticist, the universe is a big place. It's just like Spider-Man kind of already existed, but he wasn't really well known to the Avengers until he showed up. Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters could be something they introduced that's always been there, but the mutants aren't publicly known yet. And maybe they come out. Maybe they have a big, I don't know. But I do think if you're going to bring mutants in, whatever happens at the end of Endgame could definitely be the place to do it and caress it into the universe and make it palatable.
It's going to be challenging because the story of Endgame was already kind of put together before the Fox Disney deal kind of got announced. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But still a standing question. But I just don't like the idea that they get created. I
Right.
much
No.
prefer the idea of the whole thing about evolution.
I'm with you, and I think that the fact that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, I mean, it's really interesting that we got two Quicksilvers. You have the MCU version, and then you have the Fox version, the Nickelback version. I'm going to call everything at Fox now the Nickelback version of the MCU.
I actually preferred the Fox version of Quicksilver over Aaron Johnson's Quicksilver.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. Well, Aaron Johnson's MCU.
Aaron Taylor Johnson's MCU. I preferred the Fox version of Quicksilver.
Evan Peters.
Yeah.
I think the Fox version of Quicksilver was great. You know, I love the way he's been portrayed. But look, it's really going to be interesting how they do bring the X-Men in. Look, I dearly want to see the X-Men fight the Avengers. I mean, I want to see the Avengers fight the Justice League in a movie. That would be that James Cameron directed. That'll never happen, but it would be really cool if it did.
All right, let's go over to the next tweet. And the next tweet today comes to us from John Gallagher, who writes in, "Hey, with Shazam coming out this coming April and Wonder Woman 1984 coming out in 2020, along with Birds of Prey, it seems like DC is taking its time with their movies. Do you think this is a wise move on their part?" Well, you know, it is funny because when you stop and think about it, 2018 had one DCEU movie, and that's Aquaman that's just coming out now. 2019 is also going to have one DCU movie. I think, and I could be wrong about this,
But there's the Joker too.
The Joker,
not part
yeah.
of the DC universe, but still a
Yep, that's also a comic book movie, not part of the DC universe. But I think this is more of a reflection of needing a little bit of a breath for Walter Hamada to change direction of the DC universe. And a theory I kind of developed just recently was that, you know what? I criticized Warner Brothers last year when we were literally going to have to wait a full year to get Aquaman, between Justice League and Aquaman. But upon reflection, I'm thinking, no, actually, you know what? That was the smartest thing to do, because now people are going into Aquaman and they've allowed a lot of time to pass to wash the taste of Justice League out of their mouths. And now they're going into this and they're taking time to building to what they're doing. And I think it may be by design. You know what? No, at this point, I don't think it was a mistake. I think the pacing of this feels good. Shazam's not all that far away. And then we got a little bit of a wait for Wonder Woman, but even then, it feels like it's a nice recovery mode for them right now. And I just feel like right now, Warner Brothers seems to be doing everything correctly. I'm not going to say they're crushing everything out of the park, but I feel like right now, Warner Brothers is acting very astutely. They're acting calculated. They're acting with purpose. And I feel like they're just doing everything right that they need to do right now. So I'm going to say it's by design. And no, I don't think it's a mistake.
No, I don't think it's a mistake either. I mean, look, what we want are good movies. They take time, you know, and whatever we get to bring us better films is better for everyone. I want to float an idea to you. I was
Sure.
thinking about this. Do you know who, if Henry Cavill is not going to come back and play Superman again, do you know who I think should play Superman?
Who's that?
Brandon Routh.
Oh, I love the Ralph monster.
I think it'll be 15 years since.
Wow, really?
Yeah, 15 years since Superman Returns came out. Brandon Routh is he was so young looking in Superman Returns. Now he's grown up. He's filled out. He's got a little bit more weathering on his face. He's great as the Atom on Legends of Tomorrow. What if you brought him back and put him in a movie with, say, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman? I think people could buy it. I think that legacy would allow him to be caressed back into the DC universe.
Here's the thing. I am a massive fan of Brandon Routh. I think the dude is fantastic. A lot of people did not respond well to Superman Returns, and I just think you might be introducing yourself to
Could be
problems that you could very easily avoid just by hiring another actor.
It's true.
But hey, look, if they announced tomorrow they were bringing back Brandon Routh, count this guy as waving the flag. I would love it. I think he's a tremendous guy, and I think he's tremendous as Superman. All right, let's go to, was this our last one, Jonathan? What? This is our third one. All right, let's go to our third tweet. And our third one comes to us from Gabriel Reed, who writes, "Greetings. Do you guys think we're getting massive misdirection from the Avengers Endgame trailer? Kevin Feige has even said this film would have a different marketing campaign than previous MCU films. What are your predictions? Thanks." All right, let me tell you what I've said before on this topic, but on different shows. A lot of people think there's massive misdirection in this trailer. To which I say no. And the reason I say no is because there's nothing to misdirect. I mean, look, you can be lukewarm about this trailer or you can absolutely love this trailer. There's nothing in this film to misdirect. Like, it's different when you're getting into like Avengers Infinity War second and third trailers. You're showing big set piece stuff that you did have things that you could want to misdirect the audience. This was a trailer of people sitting down looking sad. That's the whole trailer. The first shot is of one person sitting down looking sad. The next shot is another person sitting down looking sad. And then, oh, look, there's Hawkeye standing looking sad. And then, of course, we have Stephen Lang at the end, which is a great juxtaposition against the rest of the trailer. It's great, but what was there to misdirect? The trailer would have to tell you something in order to misdirect you. This trailer didn't tell us anything other than, as Bruce is standing there looking at the recently deceased list, you know, Shuri's on the list. Was that a little bit of a misdirect maybe to make us think that Shuri might have died when really she didn't? I guess so, but is Shuri either dusting or not dusting a big deal? So is that the big misdirect? Unless Shuri is suddenly going to become the main centerpiece of Avengers 4, which I don't think that's happening. So I'm not putting it past Kevin Feige to misdirect us with their trailers. Clearly, he's done that in the past. I just watch this trailer. It's like, but there's nothing. It's not saying anything to misdirect us over. So I don't know. So I'm going to guess no. I don't think there's any misdirection in this trailer. That doesn't mean I don't think there's not going to be misdirection in future ones.
Yeah, no, I mean, this trailer to me it's set up the world that we now, it's the post-snap, it's the post-decimation world. The world, it sucks. As Kevin Smith put it, pets, man. Half of all pets are gone. I mean, if you weren't pissed already, Fido no longer exists.
John Wick is pissed.
John Wick is angry. You know, John Wick's going to join the Avengers. I agree with you. I don't think there's so much misdirection as it is setting up. They want us to know that they're taking all of this into consideration.
It's heavy.
It's heavy. Our movie does not. And also what it told us is that this movie was Steve Rogers beardless. There's time that's passed. I mean, the Hawkeye is roaming the streets, killing bad dudes, I would assume bad dudes, because he's gripped with horrible pain because of what happened to his family, I would assume. And by the way, from a plot standpoint, that's pretty great. I mean, if you want to see where characters are and where they change, what better way than to start the title card just starts 3 years later. You know, and the world is after the decimation. And where are we? That just sucks. You know, the world's terrible. And half the people on Earth are gone. And how do you go on? I love that that's where we're starting this movie from. I think it's great.
And I don't think, so what's the misdirect?
Yeah, I don't think so.
It's actually a big party and everybody's happy and everybody's like,
no.
Again, I think we are going to get misdirection in future Avengers trailers.
Yes.
We are going to get some misdirection. I just didn't see anything in this trailer that would warrant misdirection.
By the way, they don't even have to release another trailer. Like I always said,
they're going to release another trailer,
I know,
Robert.
but 300 million people watch this trailer. We know it's coming. It's coming soon. It's coming in 4.5 months.
And if they want as many people as possible to come out to it, they're going to put out more trailers. You know they're putting out more trailers. I don't want to watch too many of the TV spots after it does.
Me neither.
Let's go on to the final tweet of the day, and we're going to wrap things up here with this edition with Amin, who writes, what do you think we will see first? The Rock as Black Adam, Matt Reeves' Batman film, or a Gambit movie with Channing Tatum? Fantastic question. Because all those I wouldn't put a lot of money on anytime soon.
No.
First of all, the Black Adam one, somebody texted me the other day and said, today marks 4 years, 3 months, and 12 days since they announced Dwayne Johnson as Black Adam. Who knows? There are still people who believe he's going to pop up in Shazam. I think Dwayne Johnson has pretty much put that to bed. That's not the case. So I don't know that we're ever going to see him. The Matt Reeves thing. Remember, this script was supposed to be done last October. Not this, just recent. Last October, this script was supposed to be done. A year late, he turns in the first draft. Now there's stories out there that he's turning in his rewrite sometime this month. Great. It has been over 2 years since they announced Matt Reeves was making a Batman film. It's been over 2 years since that happened. So I ain't holding my breath on the Matt Reeves Batman either. Although I will say this, where I'm seriously doubting that the Black Adam with Dwayne Johnson's ever going to happen, I still believe the Matt Reeves one is going to happen, I think. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
And then what was the third? Oh, yeah, Channing Tatum. Look, they keep saying they're going to do it. But look, if you are going to do it, and you're going to do it with Fox, the clock is ticking. Now, as of right now, Fox, they've said this over and over again. They are moving ahead, business as usual, until this whole thing's finalized. And that's probably not going to be till April, May, June, July of some sort. So if you want to do it, you don't have much of a window of time here to do it. If you want to do this thing, they've got to put a motor in and get it done. So I'm leaning towards that Channing Tatum one, which, by the way, I got on board with. I came around thinking, you know what, this could be fun. I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm going to guess the first thing we're going to see out of all these things is Matt Reeves' Batman. That's my guess. How long we'll have to wait, I'm not going to say, but what do you think?
I would tend to agree with that. I don't know if the Channing Tatum Gambit movie is ever going to happen. Maybe it will, but after Fox is absorbed by Disney, they'll want to start over. They'll want to do their own. The MCU will retool it, and they'll want to do their own version.
Which I guess, in theory, you can restart it and have Channing Tatum as Gambit. I guess if they want, I just don't see that happening.
And a Black Adam. Look, everyone likes working with Dwayne Johnson. I mean, everybody. He's by all accounts, he's great to work with, and he busts his ass.
Except for what's his name from Fast and Furious?
Yeah, Vin Diesel.
No, the other one that he had the public feud with.
It was.
He had one with Vin Diesel, but the one who really called him out. Tyrese. Thank you.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Tyrese, not so much. Tyrese, not so much.
Right. He just likes to work hard. But I think Matt Reeves. Look, I'd love to see a Black Adam movie. I'd love to see Black Adam in the Shazam film. But again, I don't think that's going to happen. And if he's not in Shazam, I don't see them fast tracking a Black Adam movie. If Shazam does well, they'll make a Shazam 2.
That he might be in. Bring him in.
Yeah, that's when you. Yeah, I would think you would bring him in because you need. Dr. Sivana's fine, but you need a villain. I want to see the ultimate superhero battle. I want to see Shazam and Black Adam.
I get the decision. Honestly, there were a lot of people who were very upset when it became clear that they weren't going to have Black Adam in a Shazam movie. And you know what? I'm okay with that because this is a Shazam who's literally just finding out what he is.
Right.
And who he is and his power. He's just come into his power. Do you put him up against, do you have a movie with Bruce Wayne deciding one day to be this new character Batman and the next day have Bane show up in town? No, probably not.
No, you don't. You don't do that.
So I'm okay with the fact that they don't, but maybe a Shazam too. But again, I think we're both on the same page here. It's most likely we're going to see this Matt Reeves Batman. But
plus, don't you want to see that? I'm excited for a Matt Reeves Batman. Dude, I want to see that.
First of all, I was completely in Angerville over the fact that what I really wanted to see, which was a Ben Affleck starring, directing, and writing Batman film.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted more than anything else. But when they lost Ben Affleck and you brought in Matt Reeves, it's like, okay, you know what? I wanted Ben Affleck. But if you're going to have to bring in somebody else, the Matt Reeves pick is a pretty damn good pick.
Right.
It's a pretty damn good pick. The problem is that I've been sitting here as a fan and going, everybody's saying, oh, but John, don't you think it's good that they're taking their time? No. They're not just taking, this is years. And while all this is supposed to have been, he's supposed to have been making this and putting this Batman movie together, he's been announcing production deals with Netflix and doing this other deal and this thing with Shondaville and this other thing. And it's like, okay, that's great, Matt. Where's my Batman movie?
Right.
So, yes, I'm all for Matt Reeves Batman. I'm aching to see a Matt Reeves Batman. It's just, as a fan, I'm getting to the point of, you know what, dude? I don't even want to talk about your Batman movie anymore until you actually got something. When the biggest news headline we get in 2 years is, did you hear he's going to turn in his first draft of the script next? When you hear that's the big news, it's like, I'm going back to bed. Just wake me up when you actually got something to talk about.
Well, I think that also there's something else to consider. I mean, the DC universe is still going forward.
Yes.
We've got Wonder Woman. We just had Aquaman was introduced in Batman v Superman.
We know Birds of Prey is coming.
We know Birds of Prey is coming. And so what do they do? I think one of the real problems they're having with Batman and Superman is what are we going to do with our other franchises? If we make new Batman and new Superman with different characters, and Aquaman and Wonder Woman are existing within the DC universe together. There is a mention of a previous DC universe movie in Aquaman. One mention, but it's a pretty distinct mention. I mean, they left that in on purpose. So what do they do? Like, do you integrate a Batman into Aquaman and Wonder Woman? It's not just making a Batman movie. It's how do you integrate that into what you have going that's already successful?
And
which is weird.
I honestly think with this Joker thing they're doing, I honestly think there's a possibility this Matt Reeves thing may be in the vein. Now, I know they've made comments. No, it's sorta in the DCU. It's like, well, what did that mean, that whole thing? A lot of people took that as confirmation that, no, this Batman that Matt Reeves is working on is in the DCU. I honestly think there is a 30% chance that this Matt Reeves Batman is going to be much akin unto the Joker movie in that it's just going to be in its own standalone world.
Right.
I really, despite what they've said in the past, I really think there's a good chance this is a standalone, in his own world sort of Batman thing. But we'll have to wait and see if that actually turns out to be true. All right, guys. That will do it. It's time to turn the last page and end this edition of The Weekly Hero. Thank you guys so much for being here and being a part of this. I want to thank, of course, my regular co-host here, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Thanks for bringing in Mr. Dread there, Robert. And where can people find you online?
You can find me at Burnett RM on Twitter. You can find me at RM Burnett on Instagram, or find me on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, on YouTube.
Can I just say this, sir? You're the best. You're the best. And I hope you have a fabulous day. And I hope you guys have a fabulous day. You guys can follow me, of course, simply on Twitter at John Campea. That'll do it for us for now, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. And until next week, bye-bye.